my gay agenda. This is my gay agenda. I don't know what you guys think the actual gay agenda is, but my gay agenda is having my students wear rainbow lace on my birthday as we go to the Seattles.
Good evening, gentlemen. That was absolutely terrifying. That was a kindergarten teacher who was dressing their students up in little rainbow gear to identify them on a field trip. Absolutely horrible, but you know what's not horrible? This wonderful show, Punching Left. Welcome, everybody. My name is AJ Wilms, joined here with Mike Lauber. We have a wonderful, wonderful show for you today, packed with news. But, Mike, what was that intro video? That was disgusting.
I don't know. Where do we find this stuff? Why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Can't we just find something positive?
Yeah, right. It's pretty concerning that there's so many of these like teachers who are going out of their way to like indoctrinate their kid. And like they'll straight up say it. She was like, "This is the gay agenda. I have a gay agenda. This is what it is." And it's like we've been saying this for months, for years now.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like looking for a shout out from their friends. Like that's why they're doing it. It's not
Right.
it it really is just for like gay street cred.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like gay cred. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I don't know how their like, whole community operates, but one thing I heard is that if you're gay and then you're like, I'm kind of done being gay, they all hate you because then you're kind of reaffirming this idea that it's like a choice to be gay or it's a choice at least to live like a gay lifestyle. So if any of these members of the LGBT who are gay are like, hey, you know what? This lifestyle, I'm getting monkeypox, I'm getting all these diseases. It's like really gross. So most of these people I talk with have had 500 plus partners. I think I'm going to give this up and just try to be like a straight guy or just be celibate or something. That's when like the whole community is like, how dare you?
Yeah. Well, they can't have anybody breaking ranks. It's just
Yeah.
like the left. If you break from the orthodoxy, all of a sudden you become a threat. Um, and they were probably afraid of people speaking out, especially with Matt Walsh's documentary. You think
Right.
about anybody that was trans, or I guess I've heard even some of the doctors that were arguing with him that because they didn't do a good job, now like the community has turned on them.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. So I mean the social pressure is like insane and people talk about cults. They say like Christianity or religion is a cult and then you look at their quote unquote community, which is really just a cult. They like sanction you so hard for thinking outside of like what is the approved dialogue and if you're not doing things like that kindergarten teacher was doing trying to indoctrinate literal like 5 and 6 year olds, then you are considered not good enough and you're going to face some social repercussions for that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is something. It's a way to keep everybody in line, and it does work. People feel like they're trapped in there because it isn't just them; it's all their friends. They know if they break from the orthodoxy, they'll lose everything that has become their life.
Right.
With the left, politics really is everything.
Yeah. Well, and that's what cults do is they isolate you from your friends and family. And how many of us have had like democratic family members who are just absolutely insane and we can't tolerate because they're so forceful with their beliefs and they're so open and direct about how they feel about things to the point where it's like you don't even want to be around them. And that's what they do to all of their friends and all their family members and everyone. And they get isolated into these little pockets where the only people that they talk to are other people within their little cult. And that's where it's like so difficult for these people to ever leave.
Yeah, and it's their intolerance too. It's they don't want to be around other people that will pressure them with other ideas or even just question their beliefs. They can't stand it. They get very upset, even like seeing emails or Facebook posts or whatever. I mean, I know a lot of people that what do they call it, where you like block somebody temporarily on Facebook, you like put them to sleep or something
Yeah,
like
like
that for
restrict them or something.
yeah, for 3 months. So it'd be family, and like they'll have to shut them down because they can't see another Trump meme or whatever, or they'll just
Right.
go to their cry closet for the next
Yeah,
30
I had a
days.
friend of like 15 years, like someone I knew
Mhm.
since like elementary school, and I posted like this silly Trump meme. This was before I got into politics or anything, so I wasn't like a political figure. No one knew what I believed, but it was this meme, and it was like Spider-Man and Donald Trump, and it was comparing the two, and it's like lives in New York, lives in New York, fights crime, has never been seen with Trump, has never been seen with Spider-Man, and the joke is like, ah ha ha, Trump is Spider-Man, right? But I had this friend of like 15 years, and he was like AJ, every day I lose more and more respect for you. And then he unfriended me, and I'm like, what? Is this a joke? Are you serious? And he was dead serious. And it's like this is the response that some of these liberals give you, where it's like you can't even make jokes. That wasn't even like a pro-Trump meme necessarily. It's just like a joke, but they can't take it. You have to say the approved dialogue.
Yeah, and I mean, I really feel like it's gotten a lot like worse over time. Like I think like when sometime during the Obama administration, I feel like is when this all like really kicked off.
Right.
where if you posted the wrong thing on Facebook, you'd hear about it from friends, they'd block you or whatever. And prior to that, I think people were happy to let everybody believe whatever they wanted. And then,
Right.
but that's when like the social pressure kicked in. I really wonder what started that. Is it the left wanting just this pure orthodoxy, or was there a push from within? Like, was this something that was organized?
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting question, and I kind of think that basically when you have liberalism like we have in America, it's like it just by nature becomes more and more and more progressive, and it's just inevitable that you're going to arrive at a point where you have like Drag Queen Story Hour and stuff because everything's relative. It's like, oh well, everything's a social construct, and that includes age. So why should there be age of consent? And gender is a social construct, so why should there be men and women's changing rooms? And this is what you get with liberalism. Like, well, are we really treating everyone equally if men and women have to go to different facilities? Like, that's not equality. Is it really equality if 7-year-olds don't have the right to vote? Is that really equal? And if you believe just in liberalism and not Christianity and not anything objective and not any other standards and not traditionalism, if that's your only viewpoint, which unfortunately our government's adopted, then of course you start getting all this craziness. And that eventually causes a huge reaction on the right, which is why we're becoming so polarized.
Well, yeah, and that's also it's the whole problem with moral relativism in general,
Yeah.
because it is always going to pull further, but it's never going to be consistent. It's going to be whatever they need right now. That's what's
Yeah.
acceptable, and that's how you watch them turn on a dime. Where the J6 protesters, this was basically like Satan incarnate. This was worse than the Holocaust or 9/11. Whereas a whole summer of riots that was justified
Right.
because that was for the right reasons according to their dogma. That was
Yeah.
peaceful.
Well, yeah, and moral relativism, you're right, is by definition like based on what's acceptable at the time. Because they say, oh well, what's right and wrong, that's not determined by God. We don't believe in him. It's determined by humans. But humans are subjective, and our minds change over time, and it depends where we're at, and it depends like what time frame we're living in or time period we're living in. So they'll say things like, oh well, slavery wasn't wrong in the 1700s, but today it is wrong, and that's why we shouldn't have it. Christianity, we're like, oh, the Bible says slavery is bad, so let's not do it. It's very simple for us when we believe in
Yes.
objective standards.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that it is. I think their standards shift more for political
Oh
convenience than
yeah,
anything else. I don't even think it's really attached to any type of morality. I think it's they think this will garner us support right now, or this shooting just happened or whatever. So we need to take this stance, or
yeah,
we need to go target this particular victim class.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
which
morality is like a means to an end for them. They'll say, oh,
correct.
we're doing this for moral reasons, but they don't care at all because again, they think they determine what's right and wrong.
Well, it isn't just the left that's forgotten about morality. It's also Disney.
Wow, this is my goodness, this is the first time I've seen this black feminist female Buzz Lightyear with a gay kiss scene. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what her part is in the movie or why this picture's on there. I couldn't find any good information on that. Apparently, there's a lesbian kiss scene. Maybe they've turned Buzz Lightyear transgender and he used to be a woman. Maybe he used to be a lesbian and then turned into an astronaut. It makes as much
Yeah,
sense as anything else.
I don't know honestly. Like that actually could legitimately be correct because like who knows with Clown World now. And it's sad because like this is what, America is known for now. Remember before when like Disney used to be like the hallmark of Americanism and it was like, oh, like it was Mickey Mouse and like Steamboat Willie or whatever his name was, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, gay, lesbian, black, progressive kiss scenes in kids' movies. And it's like, this is what we're exporting to the world. This is the new Americanism, and it's sick.
Yeah, well, we're not exporting it everywhere anymore. 14 countries have put their foot down. It's mostly countries out in the Middle East, most of the usual players, ones you'd expect: Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, countries that are under either Sharia or other religious dogma, where they don't allow homosexuality is either illegal or highly discouraged.
Right.
Um, and then Malaysia and a few other Asian nations also kind of been putting their foot down on this stuff again lately, saying we don't want this
Yeah.
shown. It doesn't jive with our culture.
Yeah, well, good. And I mean, I hope this inspires like Western nations to adopt these same kind of principles because, again, it's not even just that it's like, gay people exist or whatever like that. Like, that's what the left always frames as, oh, you don't want kids knowing that gay people exist. It's like, first of all, yes, you're correct. I do not want them knowing gay people exist. That's a weird, like, sexual thing. Kids shouldn't know about that at all. They shouldn't know gay, straight, or anything. They should just be kids. But second of all, we don't need to be propagating this information in movies, especially to children. And that's why it's like it's not even on the question of like these people exist and they need to be represented. It's like, first of all, no, they don't. But second of all, even if they did need to be represented, they should not be represented because they represent something that is not good for our community and for our country. And to indoctrinate children to believe these things is actually quite sick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the second film that Disney's had slapped down like this in just the last few months. Because I think was it a Doctor Strange sequel? Same thing. There are a few
I think
countries
so.
that weren't going to run that one because of another lesbian kiss scene in that one. So I don't know what Disney's deal is with throwing lesbian kiss
Yeah.
scenes in all their movies now.
Like
But
we're exporting the global homo stuff. And that's what's just
yeah,
so like sick about it all is that these countries are just saying, like, look, can you please stop pushing this on our people? Like, we just don't want any of this propaganda and this agenda, like we saw at the beginning. We don't want adults who are targeting children, kindergarten age kids, and targeting them for LGBT propaganda.
yeah. Well, I mean, as they always say, they don't have kids of their own. Said they have yours.
Exactly. They don't, what's the saying? They don't breed, they don't reproduce, so they convert or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's something along those lines. But I think that that's what it is, and that's why there's such this big push for through Disney and through all
Yeah.
these, drag your kid to Pride events that are going on. Like these are
Yeah.
just sick. I mean, I was really happy to see like Ron DeSantis tell people of Florida they're going to crack down on that. He's going to send out the sheriff's department and state troopers if he
Yeah.
finds out gay bars are doing this, inviting children in.
Yeah.
One, it's a bar. You shouldn't be bringing kids to a bar anyway. And in most states, I don't think you're allowed to unless they're
Right.
over 18.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's like kind of the worst part I think about it is that the police, like the example of Dallas the other week when there was
mhm.
that giant LGBT like kids drag, it was called like drag your kids to Pride or something like that, and it
Yeah.
was a drag queen event for kids, and it was illegal from my understanding for kids to be in that bar that was 21 plus only. And the police did not say, "Oh, you guys are breaking a law, so we can arrest you or we can ask you to leave or give you a fine or anything." Instead, they went and harassed the right wingers who were protesting. And it's obviously the most sick part of it is like obviously the drag queen stuff itself. But I think that's something that's very bad also, or maybe like just as bad, is like the police knowing they could stop it because they are legitimately breaking a law, and then the police refusing to enforce that.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're left where we are right now with all these weak cops after we trimmed out a lot of the good ones during the BLM riots, and then when all these
Yeah.
cities were talking about defunding the police, and then now with where it's very clear the federal government and the judicial system does not have their backs, the good ones have left. They've either gone to like small towns where nothing will ever happen, or they've gone to different careers.
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's very deliberate. There is a conceited effort to push all of the good police and all the good like soldiers out of the police and military to ensure that these can become left-wing institutions. It's the same thing they've done with all these other ones, such as banking, media, press, government, even where they start putting in all these little bureaucratic rules, all this red tape that incentivizes conservative people to leave, like the vaccine mandate for the military. That forced a lot of right wingers out of the military because they knew who are the only ones who don't want the vaccine? The most strong, Christian right wing people.
Yeah, and I think that was the real reason I think behind this push to get everybody vaccinated, is especially in government jobs.
Yeah.
They knew the people that wouldn't want to comply would want the real bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
They would go out the door. They'd go into the private sector, wherever else, and then that leaves the left and their corruption to then use these agencies to enforce their will as weapons of war. Really,
Yeah.
the FBI. We'll talk about this more later, but going after just targeting conservatives or Christian
Yeah.
groups, or now we hear they're purging their ranks of conservative and Christian members. I guess we're going to be hearing a lot more about that coming up soon.
Hmm. Well, in international news, I guess,
Yeah.
Mexico is now having a large influx of American gas refugees. Wow. Who would have thought the tables would turn? Now we have Americans fleeing to Mexico for low gas prices because they are so enormously high, as I can tell every time I drive past a gas station
Yeah.
in the US.
Yeah. I mean, they're over $5 a gallon here in Ohio, but I've heard it's closing on 8 and 9 in California. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ironic. Wouldn't it be great if Mexico put up their own wall now because of all the Americans going over there to get gas?
Yeah, hey, as long as the wall gets built one way or another, that would be great. But
Yeah.
I mean, isn't this crazy? Like, I mean, this is something that Canadians have to do for healthcare because their healthcare system's so terrible. They fly to the U.S. or Mexico for their healthcare needs, and now in America we have to flee to Mexico for our gas needs because it's just so insanely high here.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't appear to be getting any better. I saw kind of like a joke headline. It might have been the Babylon Bee, but that there's this panic now to add extra digits to like gas pumps because I guess the state of Washington was way out ahead of it. But you
Wow.
literally have gas in California. I've seen pictures of it at $9 a gallon. So I
Yeah.
don't think that's the average. I think it's probably like airport prices or whatever. But still, like they're
Yeah.
they're predicting now $10 a gallon gas by August.
That's crazy to me. And it's gonna get worse. It's gonna just get worse and worse and worse. And this has really messed me up because I have like a very strict budget I live off of because I've been living off like my savings for the last year doing politics. And I have a very tight budget that I try to live to. And it's crazy to think that I was making ends meet back before the inflation, but now, and Mike, I'm sure you'll go into this a little more in
Yeah.
the next slides, but like the cost of inflation has gone up a lot. Like the White House is like, oh, it's gone up 10%. Okay, assuming that was true, which we know it's not. 10% would really throw off a lot of people's budgets. Imagine if all of your expenses went up 10%, or if 10% of all your money just got taken away in addition to what's already taken from you in like taxes and other things. That is a huge disruption in your budgeting. And this is really impacting Americans in a negative way. And it's getting worse and worse and worse with every passing month.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a story we keep coming back to, but it's because it keeps becoming current again, and because there's no responsibility on the left, and like nothing's being done to stem any of this. This isn't like, previously we've had like one part of the economy go like wildly out of control, where housing prices crashed or
Right.
inflated, or fuel goes way up temporarily. But this is, people are being hit from all sides right now, and that's what makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
And you have stagnant wages. Um, and you also have, the White House not wanting to admit anything's wrong. Joe Biden downplays inflation, then starts screaming, "I don't want to hear any more about lies about reckless spending. Spending's out of control in Washington. And that's part of the reason for the
Yeah.
inflation."
Yeah.
Um,
Isn't that ironic? Of all the people who could say stop spending so much, it comes from DC, of all places on earth.
yeah, yeah, it's absolutely idiotic. White House claims Biden has sparked a historic economic boom. Um, I don't know if they're just saying this because, like, technically all the numbers have gone up because of inflation.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I guess you got to claim credit for whatever you can. And because we've got this lapdog media, they're not going to call him on it.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, gas prices top $5 a gallon for the first time ever. Inflation recently hit a 41-year high. Wholesale price index up 10.8% in May, which is insane because that all gets passed on. That's the wholesale good price, which means you, the consumer, is going to pay even more than that.
They actually, I'm still stuck on this. They actually said it's a historic economic boom. Because, like, yeah, I guess technically, like, if we printed out like $100 trillion, like they have in Zimbabwe, like
Yeah.
all the bills, right? I guess technically, yes, when we tax 10% of $100 trillion, we have more tax revenue than ever seen before in history. But it's just so tone deaf. Like, there's no way. Like, was this an undercover conservative like intern who wrote that and was like, "Huh, this is gonna be hilarious if they publish it," and then they went through with it? Like, I'm just so lost.
No, it was a response from what's her name now? Jean Pierre.
The press secretary.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on her name. But no, it's a statement from her. And
Okay.
we're just supposed to go along with this. Like it's truthful.
Oh my gosh. All right. And yeah, so like wholesale prices rise 10%. And I mean, we've seen in a lot of cases like some groceries rising even more than this. So you look
Yep.
at the grocery store, you look at some foods like vegetables and fruits and things have gone up almost double in some places. And other things, canned goods and such going up as well. So we're hit, like Mike said, in every single aspect. It's not just gas, it's not just groceries, it's not just all of these other things. It's everything combined all at once. Energy as well.
Yeah. And like this is the thing, like we keep seeing from the federal government that inflation is at 10% or 18 point whatever percent if you go with the shadow stats number. But even that is not necessarily a good way to look at it because that's considering like normal economic activity, and it's not looking at it as gas prices have literally more than doubled since Biden took office. We were at or around 250 a gallon 18 months ago, and now we're over five. I think it was 520 is what I saw earlier today. I can't remember if it was 510 or 520, and it's going to keep going up. And it's food prices, depending on what you're buying. You're talking about 20 to 100% price increases on different foods right now. I think the average is a little under 50%. I'd seen 40 a few times, but I'm not sure exactly how
Whoa.
they. Yeah, well, I mean, look at it. Cost of meat in the last year, it's gone from being
Yeah.
we'll say four 4.50 a pound per hamburger, where now it's like 7 or 8. And it's what do you buy? I can't think of hardly anything that's like a stable price from where it was a couple years ago. Everything's
Yeah.
spiking up.
And see, this needs to be a big cry for the Republicans to start taking on more like more populist economic policies. Because like the reality is like we're being told as like the middle class, you will eat the bugs and live in the pods, and
Yeah.
we don't want to eat the bugs and live in the pods. And if the only solution to strengthening the middle class is like Democrats saying, "Oh, we'll help you out," right? If the only solution is Andrew Yang saying, like, "Look, groceries went up like 50% in cost, but I'll give you $1,000 a month if you vote for me," or if it's Bernie Sanders saying, like, "Look, prices of everything have gone up so much, but I'm going to give you free healthcare, so that lifts that expense off you." People who are not, this is, we're talking about the unwashed masses here. They don't look into the intricacies of how universal health care in America or universal basic income will impact our economy. They just hear, okay, thank God I have $1,000 less a month I have to spend on health insurance, or I have another $1,000 a month in my bank account. I really need that. And the Republicans are going to increasingly start losing traction with the American people if they kind of just say, well, this is just kind of how economics works. So you guys are going to keep moving down towards the lower class, and there's nothing we're going to do about it.
Yeah, and like here's the thing too. So like when things start getting really bad, when people again are getting squeezed from all sides like this, even if somebody does understand that these freebies and handouts are a bad idea, they're going to get to a point where they have to take it because they
Right.
can't afford not to.
Yeah.
Because they're getting squeezed from all sides. They'll be like, you know what, we'll deal with this later, but for now, I need that free health insurance. I need to save the $500 a month I'm paying my employer for a family plan. Or yeah, I'll take that $1,000 a month from Andrew Yang. That'll offset the extra $1,000 I'm having to pay for fuel so I can get to and from work.
Yeah.
So people will see it as a short-term solution, but just like every other government program, people will become addicted to it, and then they won't be able to quit later.
Well, yeah, and it's like it's very ironic because it's almost like the Republicans, like the best way to prevent like America becoming a socialist country is to do like some middle class strengthening programs that you may think sound socialist, but we will ensure the intent is not that. You know what I mean? It's like we're not trying to abolish classes and like have open borders and all the things that communism purports. But the reality is that the middle class is shrinking insanely fast. In 2015, it was the first time in American history that the middle class became a minority in America, which means the majority of people are either moving up towards the upper class or low down towards the lower class, right? Down towards the lower class. And if you're not moving up towards being a millionaire today, you're probably moving down to being homeless, right? Being more likely than the other. And normal people can't hear that. Normal people can't pay twice as much for fuel, twice as much for groceries, and just say, well, that's the way the economy works. I guess this is all fine. Like, no, these things are going to mobilize people to the polls. And if one party, whether they're right or wrong, says, we're going to fix this for you guys, we're going to give you free money, we're going to take off your expenses, and the other party says, well, we can't really do much, who do you think is going to be voted for?
Yeah, and again, people will be doing it not necessarily because they agree with the party or the policy. Right. It's because they feel there's no alternative, that they're going to lose their house or whatever if they don't. So that's another interesting article I saw. I think it was on Friday, but it was Google. Somebody had gone into like analytics and we're looking at like search terms, like what are people searching for now, and it's how many how much can I be behind in my mortgage before they'll seize my house, or can I skip a car payment? It's things that should be like very worrying to people.
Yeah,
because you're already starting to budget to where like you can't pay your rent, or you're choosing between buying food or
paying the rent.
Yeah, paying your car payment or whatever.
Right.
That's when things start getting really serious. If you do start having repossessions and people evictions and everything else, that will be just another nail in the coffin of our economy right now.
Yeah, that's going to be really bad, and we need to recognize that we have to do something because, like I said, like people can't be told like you're moving down towards the lower class and just accept it, because good American patriots don't want that. We want a strong. And look, I think the majority of like Americans, like everyone wants to be rich, but I think the majority of Americans are content with their middle class life. They want their house and they want their car and they want their family and they want to be able to put food on the table, and they're happy with that. But what we're doing is like we're taking that away from them, and then we're expecting them not to go and vote left wing, who offer them like all these economic incentives to do so, right? So I don't know. I don't know if the economy is going to become a bigger deal than the social issues, because it was actually like the opposite a few years ago when everything was just social issues, social issues, social issues. And they're still pushing all the drag queen kid stuff, which is obviously very important. But now it's like, maybe you don't have to worry about your kid becoming a drag queen, because it's going to starve to death in the next 2 weeks if you can't put food on the table. You know what I mean? So I don't know if the economy is going to become like a very important political point. It always is, but even more so than before with this inflation going on.
Yeah, and I think especially as we do see jobs begin to evaporate because of these shortages, because this is another story that's out there brewing right now. Food prices are bad enough now, but a lot of farms are missing planting season right now because they can't get
Mm,
fertilizer, or they're only
yeah.
planting half their crops. I saw in Florida, California, and I think it was Arizona, might have been New Mexico. But anyway, the federal government's coming in buying big swaths of farmland from farmers. They want to put up solar farms on it.
Wow, that's a great response to the food shortage that we're about to have in the US and the prices of food going way up. So, okay, the demand for food is going to be higher than ever, and people are going to want to be stockpiling. The supply of food is going down because we don't have the fields and fertilizer necessary for this. And then in addition, the prices of food are going up because of inflation. And then on top of all of that, the government's like, the best thing we can do right now is buy farmland and put solar panels there. What? Does anyone care about the environment like right now today? Like we are literally worrying about people being kicked out of their own homes, bankers coming and seizing their houses and their cars, and people not being able to put their kids in the schools that they want and things like this. Very important topics. And right now we're worried about like energy, renewable energy in like Arizona or whatever.
Yeah, no, it makes absolutely zero sense, like, what leftists prioritize, but I think it's because, it is a coalition of a bunch of special interest groups, and a lot of times
Yeah.
each group's interests are actually misaligned. It's, you have the environmental lobby on one hand, but then you have common sense and all your voters that put them in place in the other. And they know that right now is not the time to talk about leaving fossil fuels, doing other closing coal-fired power plants or other insane things. Like, we're already looking at having rolling blackouts this summer in the Midwest where I am, and probably down
Yeah.
where you're at, just due to heat. I
Yeah.
literally got an email about it today.
That's really bad. And yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a couple weeks ago that I said, I don't think I'll be surprised if one day we start seeing the government saying you're only allowed this much water and this much electricity per day. And we start getting like mandated limitations. Now, of course, this won't apply to our elites in the nice zip codes, right? If you're in 90210, you're not going to be experiencing this. If you live in Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton's zip code, you will not have rolling blackouts. You will not have limitations on how much water or fuel or electricity or anything else that you can use. However, for us common folks, I am predicting, but you can mark my words, in the near future, in the coming years, we will have limitations on how much electricity, water, and other utilities we're allowed to use per day.
Yeah, well, you're already starting to see that in a soft way with food, and I've been told with diesel in certain states that we're already having a small supply or low supply, that stations are letting like private drivers, maximum 20 gallons per fill up or whatever.
Wow.
But I'm sure you've gone to the grocery store too and seen like, limit two per customer on certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether that's meat, or chicken, or what, fresh produce.
Yeah.
But that's a sign that things are not looking good. Like, normally they would want to sell as much as they can as fast as they can, so they can either restock it or decide to move on to a different product.
Yeah.
Um, but now that's not the game that's being played right now. It's
Yeah.
due to shortage. They don't want to deal with masses of angry customers. They'd rather deal with a few.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the thing is like, you're right that all these special interest groups also contribute to some of the issues that we're having. And going back to what I said about like the Republicans, I have no idea how to say this in like a correct way, but like adopting, I don't want to say it, but like adopting like limited socialistic policies to avoid socialism in America. How do you say that? Here's the point: is it would be better to take like Jeff Bezos money and then give it to the middle class to prevent the middle class voting for Bernie Sanders to turn the entire country into Venezuela. You know what I mean?
I think the problem right now is the federal government and a lot of these other things more than it is anything else. Like, I think if we hadn't like locked down, there had been all this other garbage going on, or people got used to not working, we wouldn't be in nearly the same state we are right now.
Right.
We've made it far too easy to not work in this country and still live I suppose, satisfactory lifestyle. And again, I wouldn't want to live on the equivalent of basically minimum wage and having my health insurance paid for by the government. That's not really worth it to me. I have bigger aspirations in life, but the problem is a lot of people do not.
Yeah, and I think that's very like true or indicative of like the lower class, not just in America but in any country. You're going to have that. But what's concerning to me is like that kind of like backbone of the country being the middle class, the people who like do want to work and they do want to go out there and like provide for their family. Just like normal good people. They're the ones who are getting hit the hardest because of course, like if you've lived on welfare your whole life, if you've lived in like the hood your whole life, things are probably going to be relatively like unchanged for you, right? The price of gas doesn't really matter if you've never owned a car in your life. But if I mean it does in some aspects, but you understand what I mean. It doesn't impact you as much as like a middle class American family would be impacted by that. And these are the people that need to be represented first and foremost. And they're also the people who typically lead revolutions in history, which is why you see, a lot of the times in these countries where you have these like socialist uprisings, like in Cuba or in Venezuela or these other countries, it's usually like a bunch of people who are really mad that the economy sucks, and then they take up arms, and then they misdirect what they want, and they have some like communist dictator take over thinking that will solve the issues. It makes things worse. But the point being is it started from the fact that the middle class typically in the nations were like, we're totally forgot about. No one cares about us. The government doesn't represent us. They're doing their own thing. We need something to change, and they want any change, even if it's worse.
Yeah, well, that's also what happens where a lot of these dictators come to power is initially you're in a down economy or there's some other bad thing that's happening to the people, and they're just promised a solution. If they think both parties are not able to provide that, but this person has a different answer, they will gravitate towards them. I mean, again, I think that's why you saw Bernie Sanders' popularity take way off the same time Trump's did. That there's this wave of populism both on the right and the left, and people want to change. They want out of this uniparty system we've been trapped in for 80 years.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% correct. And I wrote a paper on that in college back in like 2017, that Andrew Yang, Donald Trump, and Bernie Sanders all became very popular because they're populists. All of them had a message for the middle class. And we can say, because I don't think Bernie Sanders is like a good politician. I don't think he should be in office. I don't like his policies, but he claims to represent the middle class when he says things like, before he said, yeah, you guys can have guns and we shouldn't have any immigration because that lowers wages, or, open borders we shouldn't have. And he said, we need to protect American workers and they should have free healthcare and they shouldn't have to pay for like this, and this because it's a basic human right, blah, blah, blah. All of that is appealing to like your average apolitical middle class person. Andrew Yang is the same thing. He's like, look, I just want to give everyone $1,000. Vote for me and you'll have money, okay? And that appeals to normal middle class people.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see the same thing with Donald Trump as well, with this populist message towards the middle class, where he's saying like, look, immigration is killing our job market. It's lowering wages. We need to build a giant wall so that we can keep a huge flood of illegal immigrants who are coming here, lowering our wages out of the country so that the middle class can be prosperous again. And the same thing when he said, let's stop sending all of our jobs over to China. Let's bring manufacturing back to the U.S. All of these are messages to the middle class, which is why people, whether it's Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, are growing in popularity. We need to ensure that it's our guys, though, who get the market share of this populism, and not Bernie Sanders, not Andrew Yang.
Yeah, exactly. Because people are looking for a real solution, and that's not what either party is giving them anymore. They know that they don't have their interest. That whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, at the end of the day, not much is going to change. We know what to expect from them. They want to keep these key issues in play. They don't want to actually solve the problem because it gives them something to go to the voters with during the next election cycle.
Yeah.
And whereas somebody like, whether it's Trump or arguably Bernie Sanders, before he got thrown into the bus a couple times, I wouldn't have agreed with Bernie's changes, but I think he still would have done them had the situation not been what it was.
Yeah.
And Trump, obviously, like, I've probably said this before on here, but I was not a giant Trump fan when he was elected the first time. I figured, okay, this guy sounds like way too good to be true. But once he gets into office, none of this will happen. But he actually stuck to his guns, and he fought for everything that he campaigned on. I mean, that's why I worked for his campaign the second time.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, it was like the courts and Congress who kept stepping on his toes, stopping him from accomplishing what he needed. Like with the wall, it's not like people are, oh, Donald Trump didn't build the wall. And it's like, yeah, what? Do you think he was just like, nah, I don't want to build it anymore? Like, I'm just not going to do that. Like, no, he wanted to do that, obviously. If you look into like the entire process that it took to get the wall approved, it went through like several different courts. It went to the Supreme Court, like how many times? Like multiple times. Yeah. And they had to approve it, and then they would get sued on another like issue or whatever, and then it'd have to go back to the court. And all these things take months and months and months and years to go through this whole bureaucratic process. And that's what the whole point was. The left knew that they could just drag this out for 4 years, and it was imperative that Trump wasn't reelected, because if he was, then all this stuff would be settled with the court system and bureaucracy, and then within his second term, all of this stuff would have been getting done like that. So, a lot of the times people complain about Trump, they have to understand like the bureaucracy behind our government and how our government is set up to be ineffective. And for any president to do some huge reform within 4 years, just because of how our government's set up, is almost unrealistic, especially if Congress and the courts and the media and academia and banking all hate him.
Yeah, exactly. When everybody's against you, it's impossible to do anything. Yeah. It's a common tactic. Again, it's lawfare. If they can't win in a legitimate fashion, they'll drag it out through the courts, or they'll use the legislature, or just procedural just the process in general. These unelected bureaucrats. And again, like,
and we don't do that to them, and we should.
We need to start. We do need to start like weaponizing the IRS and other government agencies when we have power again.
Well, especially when they do things that are legitimately wrong. Like Hillary Clinton is like legitimately a criminal, and we can't get her like arrested, or we can't have like an investigation on her, all the things she's done. Obama has done countless illegal things. We couldn't get him impeached. We don't even try to do any of that. Trump got impeached twice, both times over something that was not even legitimate, like just totally made up and not real.
Yeah, complete BS. I mean, the worst example is the phone call with Biden to Ukraine. I mean, he got accused of a quid pro quo, which never happened. He specifically said that wasn't what he wanted. He just wanted them to do what they promised when he ran for office, Zelensky. Whereas there's video of Joe Biden literally saying he withheld $1 billion if they wouldn't fire a prosecutor.
It just blows my mind how they're so brazen about it. They can just get away with doing this stuff, and we let them. And that's the terrible part. Like, the Republicans are not putting pressure onto these sick people who are breaking the law constantly and harming the American people. The Democrats, will come after us at any chance they get. They will make things up. They made up false allegations about Kavanaugh and went after him. They made up false criminal claims against Donald Trump and impeached him twice. Okay, we have actual, real, tangible evidence that these people are criminals, and the Republicans will still not go after them.
No, and I mean, this is the big problem with the Republican Party in general, is they are spineless. They do cave to the left, and they cannot be counted on. They want to be popular. They want to be seen as an equal. They want praise from the media like the left gets. There's so many of them that are just, sycophants like that. We need more real leaders, people that will just stand on a principled position, that will punch back and will stick to their guns, but we don't have them. Right. And when it comes to like using the tools of government when we do have power, we don't have to do like the left does and, infiltrate groups with FBI agents or do all this other garbage. All we have to do is go after them for crimes they're already committing.
Yeah.
We don't even have to.
That's the thing. They've done things wrong. We don't need to make up things. We don't need to, like you said, like plant evidence and stuff or anything. Yeah. We can just look at them and know what they're doing is wrong, and then enforce the laws on the books that are supposed to be there to protect Americans.
Yeah, and so I'm really surprised. Like, you don't see more like local law enforcement jurisdictions like putting their foot down on some of this stuff. Like, Nancy Pelosi's husband, I guess they're going to drop these DUI charges now, or at least that's what I've read.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Have you seen his mugshot? It came out online the other day.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be drunk too if I were stuck married to Nancy Pelosi. Actually, I'd probably be dead. I think.
Don't they have drivers? I'm surprised he drives himself.
Well, I mean, I guess he likes to drive. He did kill his brother that way too when he was 16 years old. He was joyriding in a car, killed his 18-year-old brother. Wow,
in the car with him?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't think he was drunk that time, but maybe.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Well, that's surprising though, because a lot of the times these politicians are driven around by our tax dollars being chauffeured. Hey, maybe Bill Pelosi or whatever isn't so bad after all. Just keep off the streets when you're drinking, my man, and maybe tell your wife to stop being such a crazy demon.
Yeah, tell her to stop drinking behind the gavel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, things are much worse than even politicians getting DUIs or coming after, other politicians, because what's happening in America now, and has been happening, unfortunately, for the last few months since this Roe versus Wade leak happened, which, by the way, did the Roe versus Wade thing, is that decision out yet? I don't think the court released their decision yet.
No, they made it sound like they were going to release it Monday. That didn't happen. They might release it Wednesday. I think they're going to wait till the very last day, till where they're all getting ready to hop on a plane afterward and go on to a vacation somewhere nice.
Yeah, go flee to Panama or something for a while. Well,
exactly.
Ever since the Supreme Court leak that happened, and it was indicative, or it indicated rather, that abortion would now be left to the states to legislate. The left has been out in full force, these pro-abortionists, vandalizing pro-life organizations' buildings. They firebombed some. They're attacking pro-lifers. And this is just yet another case of a church being vandalized. And how many have been vandalized?
Yeah, this headline was in response to another pro-life organization being firebombed just a couple days ago. I think that was the fourth one.
Jeez.
But the headline is 41 pro-life organizations and churches have been vandalized in the last 40 days. So this doesn't count all the death threats a lot of the people have been getting. That doesn't count the churches that leftists were going in and protesting at, the abortion fanatics.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't count these continuing protests in front of Supreme Court justices' homes, which, by the way, is again illegal. But our federal government refuses to enforce the law when it benefits the Democrats.
And it's like we're turning into Mexico, where you can intimidate judges. Like I watched a documentary on the Mexican cartels, and like they interviewed a judge, and the judge was saying like our justice system sucks because 80% of the judges are like. She said something like the reporter, the documentarian or whatever, asked her, and he's like, 5% of narcos who go to Mexican courts actually get convicted. And she's like, yes, but that's good because it used to be 1%. So our justice system's getting a lot better. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, could you imagine if only like, 5% of like murderers or pedophiles or rapists or like really bad like gang members in America got convicted? Their justice system sucks. And part of that is because their justices get intimidated constantly. And what we're seeing in America now is our Supreme Court justices, I'm sure along with many lower court justices, being intimidated and harassed. There's people outside of Kavanaugh's house trying to murder him. There was an assassin who went to, I'm not making this up, a literal assassin, we talked about this last show, who went to Kavanaugh's house in an attempt to murder him.
Yeah, brought with him Glock 17 screwdrivers, duct tape, a break-in kit, and everything else. And I guess if he hadn't like freaked himself out, I guess he called his sister, and his sister told him to turn himself in. But like if that hadn't happened, he probably would have tried something. And given the way lax law enforcement is right now, who's to say he wouldn't have gotten in?
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's like something that I've heard world leaders say before. There's multiple different world leaders, dictators in the past who have said this, where they're like, I don't even have security because if someone wants to murder me, they'll find a way. And the more I like live and I experience politics, the more I think that's true. Like this guy literally could have just kicked in the door, ran into his house and been like, bang, boom, 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 and shot everyone, right? And then like, yeah, he would have gone to jail forever. He would have got caught. He wouldn't have got away with it. But he could have like done it if he wanted. If someone really wants to like come after you and attack you, they can find a way. Like it can be done. So it's very, frightening that with this knowledge that everyone in politics should have, that no one's invincible, that we have Supreme Court justices that are being threatened constantly. We have, it says here, 50 reports. It says right down there at the bottom slide, or paragraph. In reality, at least 50 reports of violence or attacks against pro-life groups were committed, right? Which means there's been 41 groups attacked. There's been 50 threats of violence. It seems like the ratio of threat to like following through is pretty high. So if people are saying to Kavanaugh, I want to kill you, and then we have people going to his home with like duct tape and guns and things like this to murder him, the government should probably say maybe we shouldn't allow such intimidation to happen to our Supreme Court justices. Maybe we should like put a perimeter around their home and not let anyone in or something. We should take steps to safeguard like the importance of our courts and our justices.
Well, that's the real problem is the leftists are all about this, using this intimidation as a method to try to shift the courts. The Senate finally had the votes to pass this to add additional security for the Supreme Court justices and change the rules so that federal police could be used to, stationed at their private residence outside of D.C. To protect them. But Nancy Pelosi won't even bring it up for a vote in the House.
Wow.
Because it probably would pass, because there are a decent number of Democrats that like issues like this. They're not insane like Nancy Pelosi is. They know they'll pay the price for it in the long run if they vote against it. And also, they're not all complete whack jobs. Most of them are, I think. But there's a few of them that say, like, they don't want to see this situation reversed, where not that people on the right would do this, but let's say there was a case. Can't remember if it was you or if it was somebody else I read, like, why aren't the pro-life people out there, like, at the... out at Ketanji Jackson Brown's house, or Brown Jackson, whatever her name is,
right?
Like protesting right now, trying to get her to change her vote. And if we did, and we showed up out there with signs and everything else, how long till the DC cops showed up, arrested us all, and it would be another insurrection?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it would be considered, unfortunately, because we can't. And here's the thing too, is like, what they're advocating for is murdering babies, and we need to keep that in mind, that like, it would actually not be irrational for like pro-lifers to be like going crazy. Like, what do you mean you're going to vote in favor of baby genocide? That's baby genocide. That's insane. Like, you're advocating for murdering babies. That's not a constitutional right. Like, I would understand the legitimate rage and hatred that pro-lifers would have for people who take these positions. But on the left, their position is like, what? To be truthful, they think like, in truth, our position is like, we don't want babies being killed, but the left doesn't recognize that. So at worst, what they believe is, you guys want to like control women, what? Control woman? That's not nearly as bad as baby genocide in my opinion. But yet
No.
that lesser fear mobilizes them to do all these illegal acts and to do all these heinous things. Whereas us, if we were to do these things, in my opinion, it may even be justified because at least we're trying to prevent baby murder, which seems like something that would justify more intense action than regular activities that conservatives engage in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, like for the left to be able to like justify their position, they have to be able to fabricate things or blow things way out of proportion.
Yeah.
That's where you see things like, oh, not allowing women access to abortions. That's the same as slavery. And you see these things which don't really line up, but that is what they say about it. That it is, oh, well, that just strips women completely of their bodily autonomy. There'll be nothing but, broodmare baby factories for whatever.
Right.
When, again, no, that's not really the truth. All you have to do is don't bang 10 guys every weekend, and that's probably not going to happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know what else is frustrating too is like I'm stumbling and like mumbling like with my like little story here because I'm like I have to really try hard not to like Fed post or say something because unfortunately on the right we have like our little FBI agents watching all of our shows, writing down every single quote we have. We have the ADL, the SPLC, the ACLU, all these NGOs as well who are like tracking every word we say. So I'm like, okay, how do I say this in a way that would not look bad if it was played in a courtroom one day? Whereas on the left, they will literally come out and just be like, we should kill every Republican. I want to kill every Republican. Let's go out and firebomb someone's house. Let's firebomb an office, and then let's try to kill Kavanaugh. And they get away with it. Us, we have to be careful with what we say because, for reasons I just explained, but I do apologize for not being more articulate with my points, but you have to take into account the consideration that every single word we say will be used against us. And on the left, they can say anything and it will never come up again.
Yeah, exactly. It's very selective enforcement. And it's all the way down the line. I mean, the left has obviously been out there saying things about intimidating the judges recently, but think about all the stuff they said about Trump supporters in the last election cycle, or just drumming up the hatred during the BLM riots, or rebroadcasting news stories that they know were fake. I mean, I saw something recently that was George Floyd was basically making it sound like he was shot by the police. And again, like it's pure insanity, but it's to keep that narrative going. They know people have short attention spans or won't be paying enough attention that they'll recognize just enough in the quote to be angry again. And then, donate more money to leftists or show up at the next protest.
Yeah, and it's like I once met with the Secretary of Defense, and this was under Trump, I believe, and he was talking to myself and some other people, and he was saying like the vicious murder of George Floyd caused division in our country and we need to unify. And I'm like the terrible murder of George Floyd, like what are you talking about? Like, dude, didn't Trump put you in charge of like defense? Like, aren't you a Republican? Like, why do you think that George Floyd was like murdered by police? That's clearly not what happened. But see, this is the thing is like on the left, you'll never ever have someone who says, the terrible murder of who was it, Ashley Babbitt on January 6th. They'll say, she deserved it, I don't care, or just not talk about it. On the right, we say, oh yeah, like Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Heather Heyer and all these people, oh, they were murdered and they didn't deserve it and blah, blah, blah. Why do we go out of our way to like grant victories to our enemies when in reality, if you actually study any of these cases, you realize there's much more to this than you think or than what the mainstream media is telling you?
Oh, for sure. A lot of times, it's cast in a totally different way. The lie is perpetuated by the media. Like they are literally just the mouthpiece for the Democrat Party at this point. When you have clear cases like, Michael Brown, the whole hands up, don't shoot myth, when you have every witness they interviewed that actually saw the shooting, nobody seems to remember that except for one person who may or may not have been there, that he says he might have had his hands up. But everybody that was close, including the person that was with him, says none of that happened. Now, there's some disagreements about whether he tried to grab the gun from the guy through the car window or not, or what exactly happened there from witness statements. But again, like you're not hearing any of this from the media, and that could have helped stop a lot of these riots and destroying Ferguson, or with all the things that happened during BLM. Same thing. Just an honest media reporting the facts could have helped quell some of this violence, but it was politically useful to the Democrats, so they kept the narrative going.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how like every single time someone is like killed due to racial violence or whatever, it's always like when the person was doing something like illegal or wrong. Like with George Zimmerman, wasn't he getting like beat up by who was it?
Yeah, so George Zimmerman called to report Trayvon Martin as
Trayvon Martin, right?
yeah, suspicious. He was part of like a neighborhood watch thing in Sanford, Florida. Um, and initially, I don't think the police did anything. He chose to follow him. He was then assaulted by Trayvon Martin and attacked him from behind. And then during the fight, that's when he shot him.
Yeah, because I don't know. I may be getting the different cases confused because these things happen
Yeah,
more
there's so
often
many
than,
of them.
yeah, but like I thought what happened is he like robbed a store or something. Like he stole from a store and then he then he got in a fight with that guy with George Zimmerman and then Zimmerman shot him. And I'm like, why did you fight him then? Like why to me, why would you fight someone with a gun? Or if he was concealed carrying, like why would you fight anyone at all? That's assault. It's not like he was just like this innocent kid, like the media said, like, oh, I just bought some. What was it? They said he bought Skittles or something. He just bought some Skittles from the store, and he was walking home, and then
I
a
forgot all
white
about
person,
that.
he came out and is like, and then started yelling the N word and said, "This is mega country," and went bang, 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 bang.
I forgot all about the Skittles. At first, I thought you were like conflating the two other stories. Oh yeah, but yeah, they try to like paint him up as some innocent kid. They show pictures of him when he's 8 years old and whatever. I don't know that this was true in his case, but a lot of they completely ignore like the rap sheet, even if it's a mile long, like with Breonna Taylor's boyfriend or whatever. They ignore.
Same thing with Breonna Taylor. They said the police came in and shot her in the bed or something, and I'm like, there was a shootout with the police,
Yeah,
and she was hit in the crossfire because her boyfriend or her like the guy she was cheating on her boyfriend with that she was with at the time had like an AR-15 or something. It was like bang 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 through the door or something like that. It was some insane like situation like this.
yeah, and they do think that she might have been shot by both a couple police officers and the boyfriend or whatever. I thought whatever he was.
Yeah.
Who but and they point out, oh, she had no criminal record, she was going to school and all these things, but then you find the pictures of her on Instagram with guns or drugs in the trunk of her car.
Yeah,
and all this other stuff, like, oh, well, she was a problem too, she just hadn't been caught yet.
Right, yeah, of course. And I mean, like, she was hanging out. The guy was selling like coke or something and heroin, I think, or like some type of hard drugs. It wasn't like, hey, I sell like 1 gram of weed, coming by here or whatever. Like this is like someone who was selling hard drugs, clearly was strapped up to the teeth. And was there not like multiple people in the apartment too, other than just Brianna and the guy?
So I think they had another house that was being used as a stash house for stuff, and the police went there first. I think there wasn't. I don't remember exactly how the story went now. It's been a while, and I feel like I'm mixing a couple of these up. But yeah, I know that they had at least 2 homes for the operation, that multiple people were under surveillance before they decided to make the arrest.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like, was anything of value really lost? Like, oh no, a drug dealer died and his like, baby mama or whatever. I don't know the lingo. His friend. So it's like, I know it's insensitive to say, but like, I'm just gonna be frank. Like, do we really have to cry over this? Okay, a couple drug dealers got shot. Okay, oh well. Like, this happens like literally every single day. But when it's black on black, no one cares. Like, how many times? Like, oh, drug dealer killed in shootout. Well, breaking news, like, in other news, sky is blue. This happens all the time. It's just because like a cop did it. And I don't even know if the cop was white or whatever. Like with the Zimmerman story, he's like clearly like Hispanic.
Yeah.
And like not even like a Spanish Hispanic, but like what do they say, like Mezzo Hispanic or whatever. And he was like, oh, and the news is like, oh, he's white. This was white supremacy in action or whatever.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing you see, like was it CNN just lighting the shooter? No, it wasn't CNN this time. That was the last time. ABC or NBC, one of them lighting the Uvalde, Texas shooter. They took his like the more normal looking picture of him, and they lightened that to try to make him appear more white.
Man, it's our boys in blue. Our boys in blue. Sometimes they're taking out drug dealers and then they have the entire city riot against them, and other times they're arresting people on the right wing. And this was Patriot Front, who is known for their demonstrations, and they actually all got doxxed and arrested or at least detained here. And I think the charge that many of them were going to be brought up on, and I don't know if all of them were charged with this or not, but it was conspiracy to riot, I think.
Yeah, which is insane. They said they were going to cause their master plan was to go cause a riot at some pride event, and I just don't understand this. Like, how do you charge these guys for conspiracy to riot? And there's all these Antifa and BLM protesters, we won't charge with anything for actually rioting. A lot of them who directly assaulted police officers, burned down buildings, and committed other crimes, their charges are dropped. I just saw
who have actually rioted. You know what I mean? It's like insane.
Yeah, I just saw a story. It was two, I think they were brothers, Hispanic guys. They were military veterans that were assaulted by BLM or Antifa protesters. They did get the charges pulled to court through a few hearings. Finally got in front of a different judge. He just threw the case out.
It's insane. Yeah, and I mean, like, even like conspiracy to riot, like, you know, I'm not in Patriot Front and I've never have been or anything, but I've read their leaked documents once, and I know of people who are in Patriot Front, and they're not like stupid. Like, people think they're this dumb right-wing group. They're more sophisticated than a lot of people give them credit for. So, for example, all of these guys who got arrested, like, none of them have cell phones on them. None of them have like plans or like written on paper. All of them have been coached on what to do when they get arrested and not to talk to police. Where does the conspiracy charge come from? Unless one of them said, yes, we were conspiring to start a riot. And even then, it's like, I don't know if that would be adequate evidence to convict, like, or to charge all like 31 people there. But they don't have cell phones where they have text messages that say, hey guys, let's all go here and riot. They don't have like notes or whatever. Like, you know, in the military, sometimes you get given like little cube cards on a field mission that say like, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do. They don't do that in Patriot Front. So I don't even know how they got these charges to stick on them, because they take precautions to ensure they can't get charged with like things like this, especially with conspiracy that would require some type of tangible evidence to suggest they are going to riot.
Yeah, and you would have to have the other people would have to be knowing participants in that for it to be a conspiracy. I mean, I'm sure their information probably came from whichever Patriot Front member glows in the dark that the FBI has in there, since the police have already said that they have members within some of these groups. And a lot of times,
has the government said that?
Yes, yeah. Well, not the local police said that they had contacts within right-wing.
Oh, really?
Groups.
In this situation, like in this one?
Really? Yeah. It was the local cops and whatever little jurisdiction it was.
Dang. So maybe that's how they did. So they have like the group chat messages, and that's how they got conspiracy charges to stick. That's not good. Because I do know, people often say that Patriot Front is just like a big glow up and it's run by feds and stuff. I don't take that position. There was like a headline going around saying like FBI sticker found on megaphone. And as you can see on the left side of the screen, it says like FBI, Federal Bureau of Intimidation, like it's an anti-FBI sticker that they put up on like, telephone poles and such and all over the city. So, I mean, I think some of the criticism is disingenuous. I had not heard that the police put out a statement saying that they had like undercover agents within this specific organization or whatever right here, or this event here.
And I don't know that so it was a local sheriff or local police officer that made this statement. It wasn't the feds. And I don't know if he was as specific as saying that, yes, we have somebody embedded within Patriot Front, or this is more of a general statement, and they used that as a reason to arrest them. And then I don't think the charges will stick. I think once they're arraigned, once this gets in front of a judge, it's if even 3 of them have lawyers, they're going to point out, that just having the signs or whatever isn't enough. Like you said, there would have to be plans or some reasonable expectation.
Well, do they have like weapons? Do they have like torches, Molotov cocktails? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like there's a lack of evidence. It's like you have some messages from a group chat that you can't prove are real, and like that's that.
Yeah, I haven't seen any evidence of an Antifa toolkit yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure it's somebody's word, or it's nothing. We're going to find out this was like an anonymous tip called in because, they were going to go show up and protest, and they did. The leftists cannot have a counter protest at one of their events.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it is pretty obvious if you have a left-wing event going on and you see like a U-Haul driving circles around it, it's probably Patriot Front. So I don't know why they don't park a few blocks away, or like just put everyone up in a hotel for a night and then head out from the nearby location. Here's some free legal advice for you guys, because I don't know, maybe they'll get charged at least with not wearing seatbelts or whatever. I think that's kind of like the worst that they're actually going to get charged with, like a fine or whatever. But I mean, the reality is, and like a lot of people disagree with me on this point, but I stand by it. We can't be afraid to organize, even if there's like undercover agents within our organization. Like, yes, you have to be cautious of these things. You have to be cognizant of them. Never say you're going to do illegal things or anything, and don't do illegal things. But at the end of the day, like BLM, Antifa, the reason why these people are successful in their activism and the reason why they are successful at getting the policy push that they want, in part is because they do not care if there is an undercover cop at a BLM riot. They say, okay, what's he going to do? Like, arrest us? Good luck, buddy. Like, I'm not going to tell you my name. I'm wearing a mask. Like, screw you. I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm here for a mission. I'm going to do it. And they're not scared of the FBI. They're not scared of the police. They tell cops to go like screw themselves and like push them away. And that's kind of like it's kind of sad to say, but that's kind of like the courage and like the strength that the right wing lacks, that for some reason Antifa has, where they are in a way fearless of the police and the government. And they're like, you guys are instruments of the capitalists and the bourgeoisie. Screw you. I'm going to burn down a building whether you like it or not. And we shouldn't be burning down buildings. But I'm just saying that attitude, it served the left well. And the right is so terrified that there's like one Fed among like a giant group chat of theirs or something, that we just immediately say no more organizing, no more like networking, no more doing in real life politics. Just stay in your bedroom and play video games, and that's all you should do.
Yeah, and I think the left has this for a combination of reasons. Like, there are a percentage of them that are like trust fund kids, that do show up at these different protests and rallies, that they have nothing to lose. They've already got the bankroll. Right. You do have the bail project and other things that will bail them out when they do get arrested. And they also know a lot of these like leftist Soros-appointed DAs in major cities. Someone will get to them and tell them, hey, don't charge this guy with whatever. Just close the case.
Yeah.
That there is that network that they can rely on that the right doesn't really have, especially when it comes to social media and organization that way. I mean, you look at how many times somebody's put up a Facebook page, whether it's for like the Freedom Truckers or whatever, where it just gets wiped once it starts to grow, because again, they cannot have the right wing growing in opposition to their agenda.
Yeah, and the way that we grow, though, I think we can learn the best way to grow from what the left fears the most. And like the left, although they do censor us online, they're not trying to like arrest us for the things we say on the internet, at least not now. But what they are trying to do is anytime right wingers get together in real life, they immediately try to spin it into like this neo-Nazi white supremacist gathering, and we need police involved, and they send Antifa to attack, so there's fights so that people on both sides can get arrested, because they use Antifa like cannon fodder, and they probably know most are going to get out. So, we need to recognize that it seems from the establishment point of view, organizing on the right wing is something they're deeply terrified of. They're deeply afraid of this, and they don't want it to happen. And maybe that should kind of indicate to us that that may be something that we should do. And again, like, I'm not a part of Patriot Front. I don't do any like, organizing with any established organizations myself, but it's something that I'm not like opposed to. If someone invited me to go to a rally, I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to do anything illegal. I'm not going to like talk to any like, Fed looking people. Like, I'm just going to go there and do my thing. Like, if we're too scared to go and organize at a public park or something, how are we going to save America? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Is this what George Washington said? Is this what Abraham Lincoln said? Is this what any world leader? Is this what Francisco Franco said? Oh, we can't organize. That's like Fed stuff. Let's just like stay in our rooms and just not go outside and touch grass. Like, that's how we're going to save our people.
Yeah, and that is how our side plays. They don't want any kind of confrontation. They don't want to really push back or do anything that would be effective in organizing to take down a political opponent. Yeah. I don't know if this is like lack of energy, lack of conviction, or just nobody wants to be the one to take that first step. But I do feel like if somebody on our side would actually get organized, start planning real events like this or real activities, whether it was targeting a specific senator or whoever and just flood them with phone calls. Yeah. I think there are enough people that are hungry that they would do that now, but it's getting that framework in place, getting the ball rolling before you have something like that long term.
And I've always said, like, look, if you don't feel comfortable doing like organization, then just don't do it. But don't demoralize the entire right wing and like slander everyone else who does have courage and conviction and is willing to sacrifice. And it's like, again, think of a world leader that you respect. Think of someone who really changed the world for the better, in your opinion. Did they like do something risky that could have put them in jail? Like, there's a lot of world leaders. George Washington was doing something that he certainly would have been put in jail, probably executed for doing. Mahatma Gandhi was doing things he would have been put in jail for. Jesus Christ, taken into, captivity and then executed as well. Like, any world leader that has any amount of respect does things that are not popular, does things that ruffle feathers, does things that require a certain degree of sacrifice. And I'm in this to change America. I'm not in this to just make money and to like be popular on the internet, which is what so many other right-wing leaders, unfortunately, are doing. We want to actually change this country, and that can only be done through organization. Yes, that requires sacrifice. It requires courage. It requires being uncomfortable. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but then stay out of the way of all the rest of us who will do that.
Exactly. Talk is cheap. Anybody can get on the internet and talk to a camera or post to Facebook, send out little emails or newsletters. Yep. But if you want change, we have to, again, emulate the left. They should be our tactical role models in every sense of the word.
Yes,
We,
exactly. I like that. Tactical role models.
yeah, we need to look at what they do that's effective. It doesn't mean we need to go down the line and start like doxing anybody we don't like. But like that's one of them I've talked about before. Retaliation doxing. If they're going to dox our people, we go after whoever did that.
Yeah.
We need to organize. We need to get to rallies. We need to put pressure on politicians and make sure they actually feel it. Or companies. Boycotts are another things that conservatives won't do, or when they do them, there's pushback on it. They're like, we don't want to cost people their jobs. This will hurt the company. But we can't have that kind of sympathy. We do need to have moral flexibility in the sense that we can't look at everything in pure cut black and white like we have been. You can't win against an enemy that's willing to fight back harder than you are.
Yeah, well, we're at war right now too, and we're acting like this is just like simple politics, or there's nothing going on at all. Like you said, when people are like, oh, well, I'm not going to bring business into this. Like my business is my business. I'll just vote for Trump, and that's where I'll stop. It's like, dude, we're at war right now. They want to turn your kid into a transgender drag queen or whatever. They want to make your daughter get an abortion. They want to kill your grandchild. And you're over here like, oh, well, I can't let that affect my bottom line. Like, dude, what are you talking about? And that's the thing. It's like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe organization isn't the right way forward. I think it is because the establishment is so deathly afraid of it. Yeah. And to me, that's a pretty good indicator. It's like the right way to do things. Maybe I'm wrong, though. And I'll pay for that in my own way. But my whole thing is like, look, the solution clearly is not leaving your home. So maybe what we should do is something other than that. And if you think it's running for office, then do that. If you think it's reforming the GOP, do that. If you think it's organizing, new parties and new political movements and more like radical groups, then do that. But do something other than just demoralizing and sitting on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Sitting on your couch and being mad about things, you watch the news lie to you, it doesn't change anything. And we do need to look at the tactics that we're using. The left talks all the time about like I just saw this video with this insane like woman in HR that was saying like she looks at people's social media profiles. They posted stuff that was pro-Trump. She won't hire them. She'll move to the bottom of the pile. They won't even get an interview. They don't even know about it. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking like if I were in a position where I owned a company, I would go through the parking lot, look at bumper stickers, fire it. Start finding reasons to fire all the ones that are supporting political opposition. There's no laws that protect them from it right now. The left is completely, any kind of discrimination law they can push forward. They want that until it becomes the political discrimination. They don't want that because they want to retain the power to fire people they consider right wing. They want to be able to classify your beliefs as hate or whatever and use that as a justification to terminate you. So we need to turn that on them.
And the thing is like you're right, and even if it was wrong, and I don't advocate doing illegal things or things that are against your conscience, but I think that the people who change history again have to have a certain degree of a willingness to sacrifice. And it's like, again, if George Washington said, I'm too scared of jail, I don't want to go to jail, so I'm just not going to do anything, would America be here today? Like, again, even like bad people in history, Joseph Stalin was doing illegal things, but he rose to power. Lenin was doing illegal things. Hitler was doing illegal things. He was shot and put in prison. And then after all of that, he finally came to power. Mussolini did an illegal thing. Francisco Franco did an illegal thing. Mao Zedong did an illegal thing. Every single historic figure, better or for worse, has been willing to say, yeah, you know what? I might go to jail. I might even lose my life. But my mission to make a great nation is more important than my individual personhood. And that's why I'm willing to go through this suffering, even if it means going to jail, even if it means giving my own life to fix this country. It's what I'm willing to do. Again, I'm not saying you have to do that, but there are people like myself who are willing to do that. And I get really sick of all the demoralizing where I want to change the world and people are like, no, you're dumb. Don't do that. You're stupid. It's like, hey, you do your thing. Let me do my thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's lots of leaders and people to change the world that have done illegal things, because sometimes the illegal things they're doing are only illegal because of it's a corrupt system.
Yeah, and like what about Gandhi. Spreading Christianity? That was illegal.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you look at like whether it's Gandhi or Martin Luther King or whoever, these peaceful protests or other things, just doing things that are outright illegal right now, whether it's going into a lunch counter and you're the wrong skin color or whatever else. Like, that's how they achieve political change. And our side has to start being willing to do these things, to push back, and also to demand enforcement when the left keeps getting off on these different things where, unequal justice, unequal application of the law. So we've got to be willing, like, step up with like local sheriffs. The federal government won't pursue something for a crime, or that's a crime that the left committed. Start having local law enforcement badger them, pester them, make them bring them up on charges or start an investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we gotta get our ducks in a row here. And even if you, like I said, if you don't want to organize, then don't. But you shouldn't be demoralizing like the rest of us who do want to organize.
Yeah.
Because it does scare the crap out of the establishment, and there is a reason for that. And no political success has ever in all of history taken place without actual organization, even if it's on like a cell level. I guess like what Patriot Front is doing, or maybe not a best comparison, but like Al Qaeda and these terrorist groups do. It's organization, but on like a cell level, or whether it's like macro organization, like starting a political party, starting a political movement, and moving forward. And honestly, I'm of the belief that we should let 1,000 flowers blossom. Let's have like all different types of right-wing activism, and let's see what works, right? I'll try organization. You try playing, Hearts of Iron 4 in your bedroom 12 hours a day, and we'll see who makes political change. And maybe both of us will, and that will be great. But with all that said, I think we're just about out of time. We went way over because we're so impassioned about this topic here. But
it happens sometimes.
Do you have any closing thoughts here, Mike?
Nothing new at the moment, but thanks again, everybody. We'll be back again on Thursday at 7:30, and we'll see everybody then.